Hey, it's another episode of Battles of the American Civil War with your host, Bang and Dang, Bang here, Dang there. And we got another 3 battles for you guys in this episode. One
Nice.
very short one medium-sized one, and one pretty decent one. We're in September. Civil War's raging on, and nobody still knows what to do.
Nope.
We also have an appearance, the first such appearance by Robert E. Lee. His first endeavor into leading troops into battle, which will be coming up at the our last battle of the day. We got the battles of Carnifex Ferry, the battles of Cheat Mountain, and the first battle of Lexington, Missouri. That is
Missouri. That is.
so. We're gonna get right into the battle of Carnifex Ferry. Was September 10th, 1861 in Nicholas County, Virginia, which is now West Virginia. It was part of the Operations in West Virginia campaign, obviously. The battle took its name from a former settlement, which was named after the local Carnifex family.
Nice.
We got the Union, who they sent out their Army of Occupation, which was led by Brigadier General William S. Rosecrans, and the First Brigade, led by Brigadier General Henry Washington Benham, which has the 10th Ohio, the 12th Ohio, the 13th Ohio, the 1st Ohio Battery, and Schneider's Provisional Battery, which had 2 rifled guns.
Nice.
The 2nd Brigade consisted of Colonel Robert Latimer McCook. He commanded that one of the 9th Ohio, 28th Ohio, the 47th Ohio, and the Chicago Dragoons.
Nice.
And the 3rd Brigade, commanded by Colonel Eliakim Parker Scammon. In reserve.
They're in reserve.
Consisted of 23rd Ohio, the 30th Ohio, and Max Battery from New York.
All right.
Over on the Confederate side, we had the Army of the Kanawha,
Okay.
led by Brigadier General John Buchanan Floyd. He had the 22nd Virginia Infantry Regiment, the 36th Virginia Infantry Regiment, 45th Virginia Infantry Regiment, the 50th Virginia Infantry Regiment, the 51st Virginia Infantry Regiment, 51st Virginia Militia Regiment, Beckett's Cavalry Company, Corn's Cavalry Company, Virginia Light Artillery, which was called the Gawley Artillery, and the State Volunteer Artillery.
Nice. So that's pretty simple there. Just get a bunch of Virginians.
And again, we see the Union with a bunch of brigades,
Right.
and
a bunch
then
of
the
leaders.
and then the Confederates with one brigadier general commanding all of these regiments.
With a bunch of colonels and captains.
They're just regiments, though, not brigades.
Right.
What's the difference between a regiment and a brigade?
Brigade's bigger. The regiments, maybe, they're the smaller guys.
Right.
Kind of
Well-
like the movie Glory. That was
It was a regiment, right? Yeah, a brigade consists of regiments, obviously. Okay. In late summer of 1861, Confederates launched counterattacks to reclaim the Kanawha Valley, which Union forces controlled since July, and prevent West Virginia's separation from Virginia. At Kessler's Cross Lanes, which we just covered in our last episode, Confederate Brigadier General John B. Floyd defeated and routed a small Union force, after which he retreated to the rim of the Gauley River Canyon, where he established an entrenched encampment with about 2,000 men. The position was based around the Henry Patterson farm, which overlooked Carnifex Ferry.
okay. So put his men underground. Well, underground, but I guess in a little gully.
There's a little entrenched there, yeah.
Nice, like that. And he's just holding pack and just watching what's going on, I guess, right? Overlooking Carnifex Ferry.
Overlooked.
Union Brigade General William S. Rosecrans, or Rosecrans, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
With the Union Brigadier General Rosecrans commanding what had formerly been General George B. McClellan's Department of Ohio, before he was called to Washington to lead the Army of the Potomac, was concerned about Confederate infiltration of the Kanawha. So Rosecrans was always concerned about this, and now he gets to do something about it because
Now he's concerned because of what happened at Kessler's Creek.
Right. In response, he led about 7,000 men to advance against Floyd's encampment. They marched south from Summersville. So he got 7 G's against 2. But these guys, they can shoot your ankles off, and you won't even know they're there.
Wouldn't even know it. On September 10th, Rosecrans attacked Floyd. He attacked piecemeal instead of concentrating his men for an overwhelming assault, which allowed Floyd to repulse each attack and inflict higher casualties on the Union men. However, during the night, Floyd decided that Rosecrans' looming artillery posed too much of a threat for his outnumbered force. So, in the cover of darkness, he and his men retreated before Rosecrans even knew they had gone.
Wow.
Floyd refused to take responsibility for the tactical loss, instead blaming his co-commander, Brigadier General Henry A. Wise, furthering the dissension that marked the Confederate high command in Western Virginia.
Oh, no.
And we had roughly about 7,000 engaged altogether. I don't know why they said 7,000 for the Union, but they only had about 5,000. Estimated casualties for the Union, about 250, only 30 for the Confederates.
Right.
And still,
158 for the Union, 30 for the Confederates.
oh, right. It was 250 total casualties. Union victory at Carnifex Ferry and continued control of the Kanawha Valley all but guaranteed the security of the loyal Unionist government at Wheeling, Virginia, which was a crucial step into the founding of West Virginia.
Yeah, they needed that.
Had to keep it, man.
They needed that. Thus splitting Virginia in half.
Well,
I think West Virginia's bigger, isn't it?
not in half. Virginia's bigger.
Virginia is?
Yeah, of course.
So that's that. Floyd
that.
thought he can just dig himself into a little trench.
Came in one day, and then nighttime fell, and Floyd's like, we stand here for another day. They got all their guns and stuff. I don't think we're going to last too long here.
We might have took out 200 of those guys, but by the end of it, they're going to take all of us out.
Right.
Especially, man, once they start shooting those big
I
old
see
guns.
I see how it's a tactical loss, but I mean, a smart move. Why obliterate all 2,000 of your men for?
Oh, they would want him to do that.
Of course.
Oh, you could have took at least 15 to 2,000 for theirs. I don't know about that. I think the Confederate might have got maybe a couple hundred more before those big guns started taking out 50 at a time.
That made done.
Boom.
And then there wouldn't be nobody for the higher ups to talk to.
Jeez. Right. Well, then Floyd would be considered a hero, and there'd be a statue somewhere.
No, there might have been already. Doubt it.
So Union get a little victory there, which much needed, as we said. It led to the establishment of West Virginia, or was a key piece.
Foundation, yeah.
Foundation, just like the little rocks lining the bottom of your house.
Right. That brings us to the Battle of Cheat Mountain, which was also known as the Battle of Cheat Summit Fort, which took place from September 12th to the 15th, 1861, in Pocahontas County and Randolph County in Virginia, which is now West Virginia, as part of the Western Virginia campaign. It was also the first battle of the Civil War in which Robert E. Lee led troops into combat.
Oh, if E. Lee's doing this, I think this has to be a Confederate one. I don't think Lee loses a lot of battles. Starting in May of 1861, Union forces commanded by Major General George B. McClellan. So we got two majors.
Well,
I think Lee is only just the Virginia, right?
yeah, for
Commander
now.
of the Virginia Army.
I don't think he's the overall commander yet.
Yeah, so we got Union lead commander, Major General George B. McClellan, advanced from Ohio into the western region of Virginia, both to protect Ohio and Pennsylvania from invasion from Confederate troops, and to help the pro-Union government of the West Virginia located in Wheeling defeat Confederate incursions, from eastern Virginia. So they're protecting this Wheeling like it's almost like the United States, Washington, D.C. right now.
It's like that, yeah, big guy of West Virginia. That's what they want. Can't let the whole state of Virginia go.
Right, so we got to draw a line and be like, hey, this has to be our spot here, guys. Following his victory at Rich Mountain, McClellan was transferred to command the Army of the Potomac. Mm-hmm. We already said this.
Right.
Which Rosecrans commanded Western Virginia.
Uh-huh. Which now Rosecrans and concentrated his forces to protect the major transportation lines in the region. Brigadier General Joseph J. Reynolds was left in command of the Cheat Mountain District, defending the Staunton and Parkersburg Turnpike with 4 regiments, totaling 1,800 men.
Seems about right.
One regiment, the 14th Indiana, commanded by Colonel Nathan Kimball, defended Fort Milroy on Cheat Mountain, while the remaining 3 were at Camp Elkwater near the Tiger Valley River, where Reynolds established his headquarters.
You got to be by rivers. Or
Gotta
at least
be.
by any ports of entry.
Gotta get some supplies, man. Can't come on land.
Right. Well, Robert E. Lee, he was sent to Western Virginia by Confederate President Jefferson Davis to coordinate the various Confederate forces in the region and regain lost Confederate territory. He was like, we lost some territory over there. We need to get it back.
Need to go get it, bud.
He arrived at the camps of Army of Northwest, commanded by Brigadier General William W. Loring. Near the end of July, he went there. Although he did not replace Loring, Lee did issue orders through him. So basically,
right.
But he was like the guy in the background.
He just was like making sure that Loring kept command of his men.
Right.
So Loring's the one giving the orders, but really Lee
is giving
the orders.
Right. After personally scouting the area around the Union positions, Lee devised a strategy that included a two-pronged simultaneous attack against Kimball's position on the summit of the Cheat Mountain and against Reynolds.
Ooh, so we're going to go at them both, boys,
Right.
he says. Well, the plan used Loring's Army of the Northwest, which was divided into 6 brigades for the battle. Brigadier General Henry R. Jackson's brigade would create a diversion in front of Fort Milroy, while Colonel Albert Rust's brigade would make the main assault on the fort, and the Brigadier General Samuel Anderson's brigade would capture the turnpike west of the fort.
Okay.
Brigadier General Daniel Donaldson and Colonel Jesse S. Burke would seize the pass behind Camp Elkwater, with Colonel William Gilham's brigade in reserve. Loring was given command of Burke's and Gilham's brigades during the battle.
It's a good little setup right there, though, man. Told you.
Take them all at once, man.
And then just basically kind of...
That's all you're doing. Yep, taking it and then go out. Well, we had
Kind of like what the Union did a couple battles ago, wasn't it? It just basically came in and kept on rolling.
Came in, yep.
Just kept on rolling along.
We got the Union forces, Cheat Mountain District, they're called. Brigadier General Joseph J. Reynolds got the 1st Brigade under... He commanded the 1st Brigade as well. He had the artillery and cavalry. Confederate forces of the Army of the Northwest, commanded by Lee, had the 1st Brigade with Brigadier General Henry R. Jackson, and 2nd Brigade under Brigadier General Samuel R. Anderson.
All right. He had...
So we got a bunch of Ohio, we got a bunch of Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia's. I don't got a 1st Michigan artillery over there in the Union side. A bunch of Ohio's. Then Confederates, we got Arkansas, 3rd Arkansas, 23rd Virginia, 25th Virginia, 31st Virginia, 1st Tennessee, 4th Tennessee, and 16th Tennessee.
So we got Tennessee and Virginia, a little fight here. That's cool. The approaches by each of these 3 Confederate brigades were uncoordinated. Rain, fog, mountainous terrain, a dense forest, limited visibility to minimal distances.
Right, they're in West Virginia, first of all.
Right.
That's all it is
Come on now.
mountainous terrain and fog. And
You're talking basically hand-to-hand combat, if not 30, 50 feet away. Man, that sucks. You gotta be really quiet. I hope that rain is loud. Sneak up on those guys. As a result, each of the 3 Confederate brigades assigned to attack Cheat Summit Fort acted independently, never made contact with each other.
wow.
The Union defenders on Cheat Summit were very familiar with the terrain and mountain trails.
I would hope so, since they're camped out there.
Right.
Information from captured federal soldiers was so misleading, obviously, and 2 federal probing attacks from Cheat Summit Fort were so aggressive that Russ and Anderson, each leading approximately 1,500 soldiers at Cheat Mountain, were convinced that an overwhelming force confronted them.
Right.
Russ and Anderson withdrew their 3,000 men, although they actually faced only about 300 determined Federals outside the Union fortifications. At Elkwater, Reynolds' brigade faced 3 more Confederate brigades, but refused to budge from the well-prepared entrenchments.
Right.
Ain't giving up.
Well...
That's like make them seem you're bigger than you are.
Right. They could have easily took them out. Lost a few, but at the end of the day, they would have took over that little spot.
It even said that Lee personally scouted the area, so he would think he didn't know that they didn't have that many people in the first place. Seems like he's not a very good scouter.
Maybe he didn't go that far. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's a little weird there. The plan sounded good. It just wasn't...
weren't prepared, apparently, for the terrain and all that shit.
Ridiculous. The Confederates did not press an attack after Colonel John A. Washington, a member of Lee's staff, the great-grandnephew of George Washington, and the last civilian owner of the first president's Mount Vernon's estate.
Oh, wow.
Was murdered by the Union right.
It's not murdered.
Same thing. A reconnaissance. So they're like, yeah, let's not do that, right? Why would you not?
He was killed.
Just one guy, so you're just done?
Yeah. That was our best reconnaissance man.
Right. Reynolds was so confident in the face of such timidity that he dispatched 2 of his own regiments from Elkwater up to the mountain road to relieve the supposedly besieged fortress garrison. But the arriving Union reinforcements were unnecessary. They didn't need them. Lee called off the attack, and after maneuvering into the vicinity, withdrew to Valley Mountain on September 17th. Reynolds, meanwhile, meanwhile, planned an offensive against the Confederate forces stationed at the Greenbrier River. That was a terrible paragraph.
So basically, George Washington's great grandnephew was killed, and the Confederates didn't want to press an attack, and Reynolds sent reinforcements to the Union, but didn't need it because Lee called off the attack. How about that?
Right.
Reynolds' forces lost a total of 88 casualties, 10 killed, 14 wounded, 64 captured. Confederate casualties were unreported, but Reynolds and Kimball claimed 100 Confederates were killed and 20 were captured. The battle had little effect on either the campaign or the war. Both forces after the battle were in positions similar to their positions before. In October, Lee left Cheat Mountain for Sewell Mountain, which I am sure we'll have, in the Kanawha River Valley with the troops of John B. Floyd and Henry Wise, but he was forced to cancel the offensive operations he had planned because of low supplies and bad weather. Lee was recalled to Richmond on October 30th after achieving little in Western Virginia. He came back to Richmond, and Jefferson was like,
man,
dude, seriously?
So you're not who you say you are.
Right. What in the hell are we getting ourselves into with you, Lee?
Right.
Well, moves on to the First Battle of Lexington, Missouri. We got the Missouri Army, the Missouri Guard, I believe it is, with Major General Sterling Price. We've heard of him before.
Right.
He's the Missouri State Guard, right, with 15,000 men. And then we have the United States side with the United States Army. Colonel James Mulligan's commanding this one, and the 23rd Illinois Infantry, 3,500 men.
All right.
Known as the Siege of Lexington, also known as the First Battle of Lexington or the Battle of the Hemp Bales.
I like the hemp bales.
As a minor conflict of the American Civil War. Obviously, that's what we're covering. Siege took place from September 13th. The siege took place from September 13th to the 20th. Prior to the American Civil War, Lexington was an agricultural town of over 4,000 residents that served as the county seat of Lafayette County and enjoyed a position of considerable local importance on the Missouri River in west central Missouri. Hemp, which was used for rope production, tobacco, coal, and cattle, all contributed to the town's wealth, as did the river trade.
Of course it did.
Hemp, man.
Anything on a river. Town on a river, you're doing everything.
That's when hemp was legal, and the government didn't try to take control of it because they knew it was good for using things like rope.
And it was. It still is.
Still is
good.
yeah.
Still is very good. Though Missouri remained in the Union during the war,
Which we know, right?
many of Lexington's residents were slave owners.
Mm-hmm.
Several openly sympathized with the Southern cause.
Right, as did their governor.
Lafayette County had a high ratio of slaves to free persons, with slaves comprising with slaves comprising 31.7% of the population.
That's a lot.
Following the Battle of Boonville in June 1861.
Which we covered.
Right. Federal Brigadier General Nathaniel Lyon.
He's dead now.
Ordered the 5th Regiment of United States Reserve Corps to occupy Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
This regiment was composed primarily of Germans from St. Louis, which we already said a million times, and it had participated in the Camp Jackson affair.
Well, good for them. Arriving on the steamer White Cloud on July 9th, the Northerners were commanded by Colonel Charles G. Stifel. Stifel's second in command was Lieutenant Colonel Robert White, who became a primary point of contact with the local civilians. Stifel selected the defunct Masonic College, of course he did,
yes,
and Lexington as its headquarters, and the soldiers began entrenching and fortifying that position. Stifel's scouts began securing or destroying boats that could be used across the river, and also confiscated about 200 kegs of gunpowder and beer, 33 muskets, and 2 6-pounder cannons from the area. Wow. The cannons were placed under the command of Charles M. Perner. Several local pro-Union Home Guard companies were raised and placed under the command of Major Frederick W. Becker. So he's building up. He said, I'm going to Lexington. I got the old Masonic Lodge over here. Who knows what they have inside there.
Right.
And I'm taking all your guns that you guys have around here. So it's ours now.
Right. Got to do it somehow. Mid-August, 90-day enlistments of Stifel's regiment were expiring, and they were ordered to return to St. Louis.
Oh.
Lieutenant Colonel White had been organizing a new regiment locally, but he suddenly left for several weeks, during which time
left.
During this time, Major Becker had command of the post. Meanwhile, on the southern side, self-styled Colonel Henry L. Rout, I think it's Rout,
yeah,
of Clay County had collected around 1,000 men for a regiment that he was raising.
He's like, look at my little regiment.
Look what I did. I raised these boys.
They got so big.
Rout had led the force that had seized the liberal arsenal Rout had led the force that had seized the Liberty Arsenal in April.
Well, good
He was
for
like,
him.
look, these boys got some battle ready.
Rout now arrested several prominent Union men, including former Missouri Governor Austin King, then surrounded the federal outpost in Lexington. He demanded Becker surrender, but this was refused, obviously. One night, two of Becker's men, Charles and Gustav Perner, tested some rounds they had fabricated for 2 mortars that had come into their possession. They lobbed 3 shells into Rout's encampment, with one of the mortars causing a panic but no real damage. Later, learning of the approach of Colonel Thomas A. Marshall's 1st Illinois Cavalry, Rout withdrew from the area. Lieutenant Colonel Robert White returned at the end of August and briefly assumed command of the post from Becker until the Illinois Cavalry arrived a few days later. So, Rout thought he could do something over here, and then he's like, "Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get nothing done,
All right.
because we got a 1st Illinois Cavalry making their way over here, and we can't outstand these guys.
We only have,
Can't do nothing with these
1,500
guys.
men, right?
They Confederates have 15,000.
Yeah, but not Rout. White resumed organization of the 14th Home Guard Regiment. Following the victory at Wilson's Creek on August
we
10th,
covered.
the main body of the pro-Confederate Missouri State Guard under Major General Sterling Price marched toward the Missouri-Kansas border with around 7,000 men to repel incursions by Lane's pro-Union Kansas Brigade.
Yeah.
September 2nd, the Guard drove away Lane's Kansans in the Battle of Drywood Creek.
Which we covered in last episode.
We did. Sending them back beyond Fort Scott. Price then turned north along the border and toward Lexington, intending to break federal control of the Missouri River and gather recruits from both sides of the river. You got to get the river. Price collected recruits. Right?
I would say, yeah.
Got to get the river.
Both sides.
Right. Price collected recruits as he went along, obviously. Like Yoshi when he's going around and he keeps on eating little stuff and he gets the little eggs behind him. Right. Price collected recruits as he went along,
Never
including
thought
Colonel
I'd hear the Civil War compared to fucking Mario, but
and several hundred of his men. Price collected recruits as he went along, including Colonel Rout and several hundred of his men then at the town of Index in Cass County.
okay. Federal reinforcements arrived in Lexington on September 4th. The 13th Missouri Infantry, commanded by Colonel Everett Peabody, and a battalion of the United States Reserve Corps under Major Robert T. Van Horn. To prevent rebel Governor Claiborne Fox Jackson from obtaining any funds from local banks, General John C.
That
Fremont.
sounds like a Confederate.
Claiborne Fox Jackson, yeah. You know he's got some big, thick
Big old stashes. Mustache,
and muttons. To prevent him from getting any funds from the local banks, General John C. Fremont gave orders to impound their funds. On September 7th, Colonel Marshall removed approximately $1 million from the Farmers Bank in Lexington. Wow. While Colonel Peabody was dispatched to Warrensburg to do the same there.
$1 million?
Yep. On arriving in Warrensburg, Peabody's detachment found itself in Price's path and made a hasty retreat back to Lexington. They said,
I bet he did.
Nope, can't get that one.
Not today, Charlie. Finally.
$1 million, though?
Right.
Holy shit.
Finally, on September 10th, Colonel James A. Mulligan arrived to take command with his 23rd Illinois Volunteer Infantry Regiment, known as the Irish Brigade, and a detachment of the 27th Missouri Mounted Infantry under Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin W. Grover.
There's so many fucking people involved in this damn shit.
Ridiculous. September 11th, the 13th Missouri Infantry and Van Horn's battalion returned to Lexington. Mulligan now commanded 3,500 men. All those, and there's barely any men.
Right.
And quickly commenced to constructing extensive fortifications around the town's Masonic College, where it soon developed a fatal shortage of drinking water.
Ooh, fatal.
Dang.
Fatal, they say. Trees were felled to make lines of fire, and earthworks were erected around the dormitory and classroom buildings.
Said earthworks.
Earthworks. Yeah. Hills, mounds of dirt, pretty much. His superior earthworks. His superiors dispatched further reinforcements under Samuel D. Sturgis, with which Mulligan hoped to hold his enlarged position, but they were ambushed by pro-Confederate militia, which were alerted by a secessionist telegraph tapper and compelled to retreat.
Price and his army now numbering around 15,000 men.
Jeez.
Now that's army. Oh, that's like a brigade, a regiment.
A brigade.
Yeah, brigade. Price and his army, now around 15,000 men, arrived before Lexington on September 11th, 1861. Skirmishing began the morning of the 12th when 2 federal companies posted behind hemp shocks along a hill opposed Price's cavalry advance. They're just going to hide behind some hemp shocks.
Yeah, man. Ain't no bullet getting through them.
Price pulled back several miles to Garrison Creek to await his artillery and infantry. With
Several miles.
Right. With their arrival in the afternoon, He resumed the advance along a more westerly course, eventually intercepting the Independence Road.
All right. Well, Mulligan dispatched 4 companies of 13th Missouri Infantry for the USA and 2 companies of Van Horn's United States Reserve Battalion to oppose this movement. They battled Price's advance elements among the tombstones in Macfala Cemetery. Fighting. Don't even have to bury them.
All right.
And the cemetery south of town, hoping to buy time for the rest of Mulligan's men to complete their defensive preparations. Price's artillery deployed, and together with his growing infantry contingent, dislodged the defenders and forced them back to their fortifications.
Okay. So we got a little bit of push here.
Yeah. 15,000 men. I would hope he would be able to do something there.
Pursuing the fleeing Federals, Price deployed. Wait.
That's what they call them, the fleeing Federals.
Pursuing the fleeing Federals, Price deployed Gubar and Bledsoe's battery to shell the Federal fortifications at the college. 3 Federal artillery pieces replied, destroying one of Gubar's caissons near the end of the exchange.
Which is chests of ammunition.
Yeah, so that's terrible. The 2.5-hour artillery duel badly diminished the State Guard's ammunition, and much of Price's ordnance supply train had been left at Osceola. Right. This development combined with the redoubtable nature of the Union fortifications to render any further assault impractical.
Yeah, man. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter how big your army is. You run out of ammunition, you're pretty screwed there, huh?
Oh, and they blow up your freaking
chest.
your caissons.
Right? Caissons.
The caissons.
The Federals remained trapped in their fortress, however, surrounded by an army nearly 5 times their size.
Right.
Having bottled up his enemy, Price decided to wait his own ammunition wagons, other supplies, and reinforcements before renewing the assault. It is unnecessary to kill off the boys here, he said. Patience will give us what we want. Accordingly, he ordered his infantry to fall back to the county fairgrounds.
18th of September. Price had determined the time had come. The State Guard advanced under heavy Union artillery fire, pushing the enemy back into their inner works. Price's cannon responded to Mulligan's with 9 hours of bombardment, utilizing heated shot in an attempt to set fire to Masonic College and other Federal positions. Heated shots. Mulligan stationed a youth in the attic of the college's main building, who was able to remove all incoming rounds before they could set the building on blaze.
Station a youth?
I guess. A little kid.
I don't think that's what that means. The kids pouring water on the oh no station of youth. That's got to be something that
just put little childs up there. And
child for what? How's he going to prevent anything?
He's going to like pour water on.
I was able to remove all incoming rounds before they could set the bit. Oh, okay. So it is a youth. So he's anything that goes into the building, he's throwing out pretty much.
Getting out.
How the hell is he doing that? He's burning and what the hell is he using?
You got to do something, right?
I guess.
Figure it out. And they never told him how to do it. You just got to do it.
Figure it out, bud. You're a youth.
Right.
Once described by a local newspaper as the largest and best arranged dwelling house of west of St. Louis, the Anderson House was a 3-story Greek Revival style house constructed by Oliver Anderson, a prominent Lexington manufacturer. Sometime around July 1861. We're giving you background on the
house, I guess.
It's going to be attacked, pretty much. This is where you'll find out. Sometime around July 1861, the Anderson family was evicted from their home, which lay adjacent to Colonel Mulligan's fortifications. There you go. And a Union hospital was established there.
Okay.
Or July 1861, so Union threw his ass out, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
At the start of the battle, over 100 sick or wounded Union soldiers occupied this structure with their medical care entrusted to a surgeon named Dr. Cooley, while Father Butler, chaplain of the 23rd Illinois, provided for their spiritual needs.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, good for him.
One doctor, huh? Right. Wow. Because of its tactical significance, lying is only a few yards from State Guard positions. General Thomas Harris ordered soldiers from his 2nd Division to capture the house on the 18th of September. Shocked at what he considered a violation of the laws of war, Colonel Mulligan ordered the structure to be retaken.
Yeah, you're not supposed to attack medical, dude.
I don't think you can.
Well, it's a war crime.
Right. Company B, 23rd Illinois, Company B, 13th Missouri, and volunteers from the 1st Illinois Cavalry charged from the Union lines and recaptured the house.
Good for them.
Suffering heavy casualties in the process.
Hey, man. You got to do what you got to do.
Harris's troops recaptured the hospital later that day, and it remained in State Guard hands thereafter.
So it went back and forth.
And
then State Guard's like, it's ours now.
Ours.
During the Federal assault on the Anderson House, Union troops summarily executed 3 State Guard soldiers at the base of the grand
Dang.
staircase in the main hall.
Executed them.
The Southerners claimed the men had already surrendered and should have been treated as prisoners of war. But you guys are the ones attacking the hospital, so I don't think you have any room to gripe here, people.
Yeah, but they weren't killing the patients.
How do you know?
Well,
I'm sure patients died if you're taking over a hospital. The federal troops, who had sustained numerous casualties and retaken the residence, considered the prisoners to have been in violation of the laws of war for having attacked the hospital in the first place. So guess what? They don't have no rights no more.
Right.
The Anderson home was heavily damaged by cannon and rifle projectiles, with many of the holes still visible both inside and outside the house,
Wow.
which is now a museum today.
Ooh, we should go to there.
The Anderson House in Lexington Battlefield was listed on the National Register of Historical Places in 1969.
Fantastic.
Good for them.
Right.
And that's the
I like it.
house right there.
Yeah.
Dude. That's a big house.
Yes.
How the hell somebody get evicted from that?
Right.
Had to have been the union that
Clearly.
threw his ass out, right?
Clearly.
I would hope.
You'd hope. September 19th, the State Guard consolidated its positions. You know what consolidated means, guys? Kept the Federals under heavy fire and prepared for their final attack.
Final.
One problem faced by the defenders was a chronic lack of water.
Yes.
Wells within the Union lines had gone dry, and State Guard sharpshooters were able to cover a nearby spring. Oh, no. Dang, man, that's like going deer hunting or something. They had to drink sometime.
All right. It's like a bait pile.
Right. Picking off any man who tried to approach it.
Jeez.
Surmising that a woman might succeed where his men had failed, Mulligan sent a female to the spring. Price's troops held their fire and even permitted her to take a few canteens of water back to the beleaguered Federals. Federals. So they're like, go ahead, take a couple canteens of
What,
water
you gonna
back.
kill an innocent woman that you guys sent out here?
This tiny gesture, however, could not solve the increasing crisis of thirst among the Union garrison, which would contribute to their ultimate undoing. I mean, what are you going to do, man?
Can't have dehydrated shoulders, first of all. General Price had established his headquarters in a bank building at 926 Main Street on September 18, 1861, located across the street from the Lafayette County Courthouse, directing State Guard operations from a room on the second floor. On the 20th, a cannonball, probably fired from Captain Hiram Bledsoe's State Guard battery, struck the courthouse only about 100 yards from General Price's headquarters. According to accounts dating from 1920, the ball did not originally lodge in the column but fell out and was recovered by a collector.
Really?
Decades after the battle, the then elderly gentleman signed an affidavit with his story, then gave the cannonball to county commissioners.
Nice. They,
in turn, had the ball screwed onto a 2-foot iron rod embedded in the common for that purpose, where it remains visible to tourists this day.
Beautiful.
So they're misrepresenting what actually happened because
Right.
it didn't stay in the thing.
Right.
They could have easily put it in the building in a case and said, "Hey,
Hey.
put with the picture of the column. Like, hey, go outside, look at that, come back in and look at this.
Right. That hole out there.
It's caused from this big guy
did
right
that.
here.
This did that. Well, I guess they did what they did there and still put it in the wall back to where it was. Right. Evening, September 19th. Soldiers of Brigadier General Thomas A. Harris's 2nd Division began using hemp bales seized from nearby warehouses to construct a movable breastwork facing the Union entrenchment. These bales were soaked in river water overnight to render them impervious to any heated rounds fired from the federal guns. Nice.
Smart.
They're heavy too, though. I bet. How the hell they move them?
Oh, they got 15,000 men or whatever the hell it was.
Horses. Harris's plan was for his troops to roll the bales up the hill the following day, using them for cover as they advanced close enough to the Union garrison for a final charge.
That's smart as hell.
It is. The hemp bale line started in the vicinity of the Anderson house, extending north along the hillside for about 200 yards. Dang. In many places, the hemp bales were stacked too high to provide additional protection. Look at that. There's a little picture here of these guys doing their thing.
Early on the morning of September 20th, Harris's men advanced behind his mobile breastworks. As the fighting progressed, State Guardsmen from other divisions joined Harris's men behind them, increasing the amount of fire directed toward the Union garrison. Although the defenders poured red-hot shot into the advancing bales, their soaking in the Missouri River the previous night had given the hemp the desired immunity to the federal shells.
All right.
Could you imagine the level of defeat where the first hot shot landed on one? They're like, "Oh, we got it, boys," and then it does nothing. They're like, "Oh, shit."
Well, let's aim for just past them. Maybe they might hit somebody.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? hitting you, instantly burning too.
I think you'd be dead before you would feel the burn.
I don't know. I remember that big.
Doesn't matter. You know how heavy they are, though?
Take your leg off or something. Right,
Take your head off.
Definitely take your head off. By early afternoon, the rolling fortification had advanced close enough for the Southerners to take the Union works in a final rush.
There it is.
Mulligan requested surrender terms after noon, and at 2 o'clock, his men vacated their trenches and stacked their arms. Many years later, in his book, The Rise and Fall of the Confederate Government, Southern President Jefferson Davis opined that expedient of the bales of hemp was a brilliant conception.
It was.
Not unlike that which made Tariq, the sorcerer and warrior, immortal, and gave his name to the northern pillar of Hercules.
Right, so he's comparing that, right. Casualties at Lexington were relatively low because the battle was largely fought from protective positions.
Right.
Price claimed a loss of only 25 men killed and 72 wounded in his official report. However, a study of his subordinates' after-action reports reveals a total of at least 30 killed and 120 wounded. This would not include any civilians or recruits who had not been enrolled but who had joined the fighting.
Okay.
The Federals lost 39 and wounded 120, got wounded. The relatively light casualties may be attributed to Mulligan's excellent entrenchments and Harris's hemp bale inspiration.
Right.
Nevertheless, the entire Union garrison was taken prisoner.
Damn right they were.
Among the casualties at the First Battle of Lexington was Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Grover, commanding the 27th Missouri Mounted Infantry, who was wounded by a musket ball in the thigh. Oh. He succumbed to his wound on it took 2 months. Succumbed to his wound October 31st, 1861. That was truly a frightening Halloween for him. Huh?
Yeah. Hell of a way to go, right?
Damn.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Right, drank himself to death.
I love it.
All right. The surrendered Union soldiers were compelled to listen to a speech by the deposed pro-Confederate Missouri Governor Claiborne Fox Jackson, who upbraided them for entering his state without invitation and waging war upon its citizens. The Federals were then paroled by General Price, with the notable exception of Colonel Mulligan, who refused to parole.
He's a colonel, man.
Price was reportedly so impressed by the Federal commander's demeanor and conduct during and after the battle that he offered Mulligan his own horse and buggy and ordered him safely escorted to Union lines. Hey, nice. See, look at that. Let him go.
And Mulligan refused parole.
Right.
So Price is like, all right, man, we'll escort you to your people, man. And that's how great we think of you.
Right.
Well, Mulligan was mortally wounded at the Second Battle of Kernstown near Winchester, Virginia on July 24th, 1864, while Price would go on to command Confederate forces at numerous battles throughout the Western and Trans-Mississippi theaters. Following the surrender at Lexington, Fremont and Price negotiated an exchange cartel. The Camp Jackson parolees were exchanged for a portion of Mulligan's command. This worked smoothly for the officers who were specifically named, but not for all the Federal enlisted men. Some enlisted men were ordered back into Federal service without having been properly exchanged, then moved to different theaters. Several were captured at Shiloh, where they were recognized and executed for violating their parole. Oh, damn. Like, we paroled you guys, and we told you not to go
anywhere
back into the service over there. We'll let you go, but you ain't fighting against us no more.
Right.
And then they get captured, and these guys are like, wait a minute. Didn't I get you? Didn't I? It's like that one cop that pulled me over that one time. Hey, didn't I get you the last time? Yeah, you damn right you know who I am. And then they get executed.
I told you.
You idiot. Here's your broken windshield.
Right.
That's going to do it for the battles of Carnifex Ferry, Cheat Mountain, and the First Battle of Lexington, Missouri. That's going to be 3 battles for us today. And we'll be back next week for another probably 3 or 4 battles. We're winding up.
Yeah, we got the Union winning 2 little skirmishes, and then Federals, the Confederates got themselves one.
Confederates.
Right.
Got themselves one. So, yeah. We're only in the beginning of September. Well, middle of September now, but September, getting closer to 1862. And we've already told you 100 times what happens in 1862 and beyond. With that being said, we did all we can do for these 3 battles. Good. It's not really anything major. Nothing. The only major one I would say that resulted in anything that was significant was the first one that led to the creation of West Virginia. Other than that, I mean, just skirmishes and people dying. That's war for you, right? With that, yeah, we'll be back. Tis is war. We'll be back next week for another 3 or 4 battles, probably, and we'll see you then. We are the Monthly Michiganders with Bing Dang.